Okay, it's 7 o'clock, so we're going to call the Southbury Board of Selectmen January 15th meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next up, I'd like to have a moment of silence for a few people that passed away. Town employee, unfortunately, Lily Kruger, passed away unexpectedly a couple weekends ago. And Jim Doherty, commission member, a member of the Park and Rec Commission and a few other commissions, very active in our community. And also, this past Monday, Pat Forrest, who was a former employee in the assessor's office, passed away. So please, a moment of silence for all three. Thank you. Next up, we have a presentation from Sustainable Southbury's Chuck Liddy on a SMMR2 award.
Hello, yeah, everybody can hear me, right? Yeah, so I know much of the board here, or at least, Kelly and Holly and of course you, Jason, but I feel like perhaps I should introduce myself since I haven't been before this board a little bit, so I can go through a little bit of my history if you want. So I was originally trained as a forester. I had a small career in that, but more notably, I spent a long career with GE Capital, 30 some odd years in various analytic roles and leadership roles. More notably, when I retired, I went back to school and I got a degree in sustainable design. And that's as applied to, rural environments, urban environments, and buildings. And then I followed that on with passive house training, which is a very energy efficient way to build buildings. Now, I'm not doing anything monetarily with that, because when I finished all that, I started Sustainable Southbury, and that was in 2019. And I also chair the Energy Task Force in town. So I'm here today in the role of Sustainable Southbury. I've been asked to speak about this grant award that I understand you're going to make a decision on later in the agenda today. I think I was chosen to speak about it because Sustainable Southbury was somewhat involved in the getting the grant application for the award in, and also because Sustainable Southbury does quite a number of waste reduction type initiatives. I do want to mention that we've been through, we've been to the Board of Finance, and they've voted for us to accept this grant. What I'm going to try and do today is give you some context about how this grant works and some understanding, as well as some early thoughts we have on how we think we ought to go about it. So we're going to talk trash tonight. Or in deep speak, sustainable materials management, euphemism for trash. You'll see that this is round 2. We were approached, I was approached, I was asked to talk at a Sustainable CT award ceremony. And We built Sustainable Southbury on the Sustainable CT framework. It's a statewide organization that's not run by the state, but they're an independent nonprofit now. They were originally out of Eastern. They help towns become more sustainable. It's a very broad definition of sustainability. There's 12 different categories. We helped the town first become a bronze certified town and then a silver certified town. We're working on the gold right now. So I'll come back at some point and educate you a lot more on that. And Jason also mentioned that I should come back and talk about stuff we're doing on the Energy Task Force, because we have a pretty large solar project moving along at the transfer station. And it's moving nicely right now, and everything's on schedule, but it was quite an undertaking to get it put together. Yeah, so this is fine. So the way this grant is structured, so yeah, let me finish the story about how we came to be doing this grant. I gave this talk at an award ceremony, Sustainable CT, and I was approached afterwards by this company called Waste Zero. They're one of the leaders in waste management activities. They help municipalities and other people, other entities try to reduce their waste. And they said, you know, we're interested in you applying for round 2 of this SMMR grant. And we said, well, you know, we tried to do round 1, but it was so onerous, we decided to back off from it. Both the town didn't want to do it, and it was a lot of work on our small nonprofit, all-volunteer organization to support that. So we made the decision to step back from that. And she said, well, okay, yeah, we understand that. We learned a lot in round 1. We've completely restructured it. So, so I said, all right, I'll connect you with the town. And they did. And Waste Zero effectively wrote the grant for them, and in a very short amount of time, and managed, and you know, the previous administration signed it. So, and lo and behold, we were given the award. It's not quite as incredulous as it sounds, because Waste Zero was the only company that was allowed to do round 1. So they had helped the whole cohort of towns to do it. It was easy for them to put the application together. So this slide represents one of the major differences between round 1 and round 2, one of the learnings, right? So the way it works is DEEP is not going to advance us funds if we accept this award for anything. Like, you know, most grants we get in Sustainable Southbury, you sign up for it, you agree to the terms, and you get a sum of money, right? We got 2 grants coming in right now within the nonprofit that work that way. This works differently. Here, they don't advance any funds until you have made some expenditures. And the town is expected to float that money for a period of time, and then they submit an invoice and a proof of payment, and they get reimbursed for it. The other big difference is there's this phase 1, and that's really the only decision we're making tonight. The way this grant works is it's all toll-gated. We could stop at any point in this process and not move forward. And the first phase is just to study whether this grant, which is structured around a specific form of waste management, unit-based pricing, whether this grant is worth us doing. So it's you know, set our baseline, and I'll go through a number of activities that we plan to do in phase 1, but I want to emphasize that. That's the only decision tonight. There's no risk here. You know, essentially, we're being given $17,000 to go and study whether this is a good idea or not. If we choose not to move forward, no harm, no foul. And it's the same with each one of these toll gates later on during the launch and the monitoring phase. We can stop doing this at any time we want to. So, yeah, if you could go to the next slide. This sets a little bit of the background. You know, I mentioned unit-based pricing. You can brand this as Pay to throw is another common term for it, or some towns are branding this as save to throw. It's a little more clever marketing, but you know, it's a time-honored way for people, when you have something that you're trying to conserve that people don't think about normally. Think about water, right, in the West, right? Do you want people to stop using so much water where the water isn't plentiful? They start to pay for the water, and now maybe you're not going to water your lawn when you don't really need to, right? So it's the same concept here. You're paying either on volume or weight for every item that you throw away, and typically, many times it's done in a bag process. It doesn't have to be. That's part of what we want to study, is the different ways to do this. So what this slide is showing you is some of the results from this first round of the grant. You notice the bottom, along the bottom here, if you move down from even left to right, the one has achieved the biggest reduction in per capita in waste reduction is Stonington. Now there's a little bit of a story behind that. They've been doing unit-based pricing in Stonington for a very long time. And this grant just widened it out to, in the round one, it widened it out to include food scraps. So they're definitely on our list of towns to talk to. They are the most experienced entity in Connecticut doing this. And you know, I should mention this is much more than a statewide initiative, right? These programs exist throughout the country. When I go down to settle out my in-laws in Selinsgrove, Pennsylvania, it worked exactly that way. You drove into the transfer station, you talked to the guy in the how many bags do you have? Okay, you know, this will be how much money it is, and you move on and you go and dispose of your waste. So, and you know, we've been starting to research other areas that have it. It's out in the Midwest, it's in California, it's, you know, nationwide. This has been shown to be a very effective way to reduce the trash. So this is the cohort, Woodbury. Notice Woodbury did the first. Fortunately, we already have a relationship with them. They're high on our list of towns to talk to see what their experiences were. Kent, Madison. One of the ones that's not on here that is doing it is Newtown. So that raises an interesting issue right off the bat. We have two towns right close to us that are doing this. And, you know, we had a situation when we used to allow commercial haulers to come into the transfer station for free. You remember how busy that was at the transfer station, right? We were getting other towns' trash. It became very clear that we were getting other towns' trash. And, you know, once we stopped allowing them to come in at all, our volume went way down. And our traffic went way down in the transfer station. Saturdays used to be a nightmare to go to the transfer station. Now it's like a normal transfer station for the most part. So this is exactly the same kind of situation here. You see they've achieved, Stonington's achieved up to 50% reduction per capita. And the lowest one was 34% in Middletown. They have some other programs there that might have hampered that. But at any rate, the two bars on the left, two columns on the left, show the U.S. average of 900 pounds per capita. And the Connecticut average is a little bit lower than that, 749 pounds, right? So and the point this slide is making is 34 years, right? This is a waste zero slide, by the way, but 34 years they've been at this, and we've tried curbside recycling. Of course, Southbury hasn't done that. Single stream recycling, extended producer, a lot of education. This is something Sustainable Southbury does a lot of outreach, education, and you've only brought it down to about 749 pounds per capita, right? So, you know, their main point is you can continue doing all these things and you can get better, but it's more on the margins. If you want dramatic improvement, you want to think about having people pay based on unit-based pricing. So yeah, if you can go on. Now, this is a kind of a complicated looking slide, but the thing that stood out to me is, you see, we're right here in the middle. So, you know, I think some of you go to the transfer station now and take your food scraps. Sustainable Southbury started this program about 20, almost 30 months ago. We've been at it about 2.5 years. We're right now at about 40 tons of food scraps a year that we're taking out. We've done about 105, I think, total, if I'm remembering the numbers right. And the main reason, what this is showing is that, look at Woodbury. Their bar is much higher, right? Their column's much higher. So this is the percent of food scraps you're taking out of your trash. So, you know, any part of your trash, the single biggest opportunity is to take those food scraps out. I can't tell you the number of people that came up to us when we were first rolling this program out and we were sitting at the transfer station for hours on end. I can't believe how much lighter my trash is now that I'm taking those food scraps out. It's because they're wet and they're heavy, and they're the single biggest opportunity. They're typically 22% of the waste stream. So we've been, you know, by our own estimates in Sustainable Southbury, we thought we were about 2 to 5% penetrated of where we could be against that 22%. This slide is a little more generous. It has us at about 8%. You know, we have to measure that to be, and we'll do that as part of this first phase of the grant, but we have to measure that better to really know. But the striking thing is Woodbury just started this program much later than we did, and they're already up over 50% toward that 20%. So, and it's perfectly logical, right? First thing you're going to do is focus on the heaviest, wettest thing in your garbage, and you're going to take it out if you have an opportunity to move it and create something useful out of it. You know, ours goes to New Milford Farms. We make compost out of it. Theirs goes to the digester, I believe, and but so it's being used for, you know, power generation. But the first thing you're going to do is do that, right? And that'll lighten up your load and reduce your trash. So the next slide, please. We learned in a call with Deep yesterday, there aren't hard and fast deadlines on this, which was good news for us, because we wanted to take longer in the groundwork phase than we were first led to believe we would need to. So we could take at least 6 months to do our groundwork and do our homework and see if this program really makes a lot of sense or not. After that, they're very accommodating on your timelines. There's no drop-dead date. We can stretch this out for, you know, a good period of time if we need to. Next slide, please. Oh, yeah. So this is a quote from Richard Quotes of Woodbury. Fortunately, we have a relationship with him already. We were talking about sharing some food scrap, combining capabilities on food scraps conceptually before they started doing this grant. But, you know, his quote is that their mean solid waste, their trash, was reduced by $68,000 over the current year's budget. And he said that was the only line item that showed a reduction. So these are some thoughts on our next steps. We've already started a fair amount of this work. You know, within Sustainable Southbury, we're reviewing other towns' unit-based pricing systems. We really want to understand, you know, what the successes were and what the failures were, how they solve problems. There's different ways you can design this. It doesn't have to be a bag concept. It can be stickers on containers, or it can be various sized pails. There's all kinds of approaches to rolling it out, so that's all part of the design review. How do these other towns do that? What can we learn from what they've done it? One of the most critical questions here is around selecting the right sort of program manager, technical consultant. This is designed from the grant for you not to go it alone. This is really too big of a job for anybody that's as stretched as town government is, right? So We have the list of state-approved agencies for this, and we've narrowed that list down. We're not required to go with just that list. We can select anybody we'd like to. But we've narrowed that list down based on the capabilities that we thought were the most important. We first narrowed it down to 4. Their third one took themselves out in our first call with them. We already had experience within Sustainable Southbury with them. It's the Center for Eco-Technology. They help us with other waste reduction projects that we've been doing with restaurants, and we tried to do with the town, with the school system. So that left 3. We've got 2 responses in, where the third one is due to come in this week. We've sent out a pretty detailed questionnaire, really asking them, okay, how did you go about doing that marketing campaign to get people? How did you go about engaging stakeholders? How did you go about engaging residents? And how did you do your waste audits, right? That's a key activity in my mind. Let's understand what's really in our trash. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. But so we asked them for a pricing proposal, a pretty extensive document on a questionnaire. We've got 2 of those back. In my mind, we'll go on much as we did when we were doing the solar vendor risk assessments. We'll do an interview process examining, you know, their capabilities. We want to understand the risks the company itself poses. You know, like we asked them, have you ever been in bankruptcy? You know, we'd like to see their financials. You know, I'm speaking from my GE Capital hat now in 30 some odd years in financial risk management. But another thing that we think is very important is to form an advisory committee. And our proposal in Sustainable Southbury is to do this as a mixture of town officials. We have some people in Sustainable Southbury that have, you know, change management experience. I myself was in a company, GE Capital was constantly reinventing itself. You know, they grew by acquisition. So every acquisition, we had to all drop the books and throw all our objectives out for the year and get a whole new set of new ones. But over and above that, they were always doing change initiatives. They were very nimble on their feet. They were a very process-oriented company. So they developed a whole toolkit, and which are now all public domain, and process around it. So it's a lot of help to be able to have that at our beckon as we go through this. Because this is, if we choose to do this, this is going to be a change, right? And we'll need that kind of engagement from this advisory committee, which should also include members of the community, to do it well. We need Public Works on it. We need the Board of Finance on it. Ideally, this is, you know, not a partisan sort of initiative. We'd like Democrats and Republicans on it. We'd like a 50% women, 50% men, so we have various perspectives on it. So, and of course, you're here tonight to decide on a resolution to accept the grant or not. Again, you're only working about the 17,000, right? That's the only thing. We're giving 17,000 to do all this groundwork and assess whether we really want to do this or not. We're under no commitment to do unit-based pricing, and honestly, we want to broaden it out, even if the grant doesn't pay for it, and do it, you know, either on the cheap or through some other funding. We want to broaden it out to also do other waste reduction methods, right? Some of which we've already been working on in Sustainable Southbury. So, you know, we've been thinking a little bit about once we get this team chartered around it and how we ramp up. We're trying to stay ahead of the curve on this because this is a big project. So obviously, goals and objectives are number 1. I mentioned the waste audit. This is really important. And, you know, Waste Zero and the other firms we're interviewing have experience doing these waste audits. So, yes, they go into the dumpsters. You know, hopefully, I think what we probably want to do is we want to set aside, say, 1 in every 10 bags for a while, and then lay them out on a tarp or some sort of surface and set up a whole bunch of buckets and categorize all the waste in it. And yeah, they put on the Tyvek suits and, you know, all of that, because there aren't many. One of the people we were just in the meeting with yesterday said, the only reason I was hired is because I was willing to do these waste audits. So but, yeah, it's not something I particularly want to do, but I'll be there closely watching it for sure. But, you know, how much food scraps is actually in our waste? We've been guessing at that for a long time, right? How much textiles are in our trash, right? When they could be just gone to Bay Steak, and, you know, the town can make money off of it. How about glass? You know, how much glass is going in there? How much plastic bottles? You know, we do these bottle and can events, right? Some of you are familiar with them and use those events. You know, we take an astounding number of bottles and cans in every month. And, you know, I can't tell you how many people told me, yeah, I just throw them away normally. If you weren't here, I'd go back to doing that. You know, not even recycling. They throw them in the trash. So, you know, this waste audit will illuminate all that and give us a good idea of how to design this program. And you know, you can't manage what you can't measure, right? So this is, in my mind, one of the key activities that will help us get a lot smarter about our trash by, you know, accepting this grant, even if nothing else comes out of it, right? So obviously we want to develop a broad blueprint for reducing our waste and teaching people to reuse materials and recycle materials, give them alternatives, right? Instead of just throw it in the trash. My wife was just out with one of her gardening friends she runs the Southbury Garden Club. And she said, yeah, you know, I like to go shopping. I go to the store and I start buying all this stuff, and I end up like throwing 3/4 of it away. And, you know, I just couldn't believe it. I was like, my wife resisted the urge to give her a little lecture there, but they were taking her out to lunch after all. But, so, you know, stakeholder engagement, I mentioned Public Works. You know, this is a deep partnership with Public Works and the Board of Finance on my mind, and, you know, perhaps some of you folks, if you want to help us with this. Key is how we reach out to the residents and gauge the temperature of the community and whether they're really interested in doing this. And, you know, we want to run focus groups so we can get their input and how to design the program. Obviously, the financial analysis and budgeting is important, very important on this. I mean, it needs to pencil out, right? This town is very cost conscious, and we are as well, right? And, you know, what is going to be required of the town to support a program like this? You know, if you have bags that you need to weigh or check in some way, or, you know, how do we make sure of that, right? And so figure out the operations, figure out the personnel to support the program, and come back with that business case on whether it makes sense or not. And we put some money in the grant to put a greeter at something that's been talked about at the transfer station for a long time, right? So to scan the tags and put a greeter in. And I think it's incredibly important for us now that we have, you know, Woodbury, Newtown, other towns, more of this spreading, right? We may be having the same situation we had with the commercial haulers, where we're getting more trash from other towns coming in here, right? And we need a way to monitor that, right? So and I think that's another important reason for us to do this, this grant, so that we can really study and understand how much of that is coming in. I mean, we've got the stickers rolled out now for the transfer station. We've got a good way to track this. We just need to be methodical about, you know, week over week, understanding what's coming in and out of the transfer station. You know, I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about key performance indicators. That's, you know, back to my capital days, but we live by key KPIs. And, you know, this comes up in every conversation we have about it, but, you know, what about illegal dumping? Are people going to simply start illegal dumping? And, you know, when I first heard about this, I had kind of 3 reactions to it. One, if you think about it from a common sense point of view, Stonington has been doing this for, you know, I think at least a decade. I don't remember precisely how long, but, you know, I think they would have solved this or not continued it if there was a lot of illegal dumping going on, right? So that's one of the reasons we want to talk about it and be proactive about how you do it. My second thought is, if you make it convenient and you educate people on what the alternatives are. You know, do you know we have textiles at the transfer station? Do you know that helps the town make money? Do you know we have mattresses? Do you know we can do your tires? Do you know we take oil, batteries, you know? It's surprising to me how many people don't really know that. So make it convenient, make it easy for people. I think there's a whole cohort of people that will try to do the right thing. And, you know, teach them. In Sustainable Southbury, this is one of our roles in this. We will help people learn to reduce waste by preventing it in the first place, how to reuse materials, how to recycle more properly. And so, you know, that'll help bring the illegal dumping down. And then, you know, lastly, there's gonna have to be some monitoring around this, right? Because there's always gonna be some sort of cohort of people that will. But, you know, that's really all I have. The rest of it is appendix material. Hopefully you got the deck ahead of time and had a chance to look at it. I'm not gonna go through this appendix in any measure unless you want me to talk more, or I'm available for questions if you wanna talk, but.
Chuck, I have a question.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Sorry, and I apologize. I'm recovering from a cold. For the towns, like Woodbury and Newtown, what's the impact on the residents? Like, are they splitting their trash at home? What are the expectations of them before they get to the transfer station?
So I think, again, I'm having a little trouble hearing, but I think you were asking what the expectations were on the population before they rolled it out. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, you know, I don't have a lot of factual information about that yet. I can tell you I was monitoring Facebook, you know, like everyone else, right? Because I knew this was going on. And there was a big local segment. I don't know if they were a minority or majority, but they were very vocal, right? This is one of the questions we're going to ask both Richard Coates in Woodbury and George Hale, as well as you know, Fred over in Newtown, a Public Works Director there. I have a long relationship with him. I want to understand whether there was a majority and how they engaged the stakeholders to try and what they did and what worked and what didn't work, because I think that's one of the key activities here.
Yeah, I think that's one of my questions, because, you know, thinking about many of our families that are very busy, and what I would hate to see is that people stop using the transfer station and just go to private hauling because it becomes too onerous, because it's just difficult for a busy family. You know, I just don't know to what degree they're responsible for separating and knowing what they have and how much work that is for the average person. I'm not saying I'm against it, but it's something to think about, is how that impacts kind of their use of the transfer station.
Yeah, and that's one of the considerations for this first phase one design phase. You know, for me, it's somewhat second nature because we're Sustainable Southbury, right? We've been doing this in my house, but even in our house, I have a full appreciation of, you know, we were lifelong recyclers, and, you know, once we started this organization really learning about it, you know, we do more now than we used to do. Mm-hmm. And that's a common story as I talk to people. So you have to design the program in a way that it's not going to be too onerous for people. Yep. And that's, you know, that's going to merit a lot of discussion.
Right. Well, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. First Selectman. Through you, Chuck, to kind of jump off Holly's question, can you walk me through the potential resident experience? So I'm making dinner, right? So I'm going to create all kinds of trash. I'm going to, you know, get my cans. They're going in the blue bin for the recycle. Now I have material solid waste that isn't food scraps that I'm putting in my traditional garbage for the food scraps. Is part of this a receptacle, bags? What is the average homeowner using for the food scraps?
So, yeah, again, these are all phase one activities, right?
I know, and I'm asking you to presume a lot of things, but
yeah,
best guess.
So, you know, if we go with a bag system, and you know, I'm not particularly wed to this bag system, but they have made the point that it tends to be the most effective at reducing your trash. So, you know, it's incumbent on us to look at it in detail. If you go with the bag system, the bags will be sold in a variety of retailers around town. and you'll purchase your bags from them. It could be done by the town, but I think the town would prefer to have the local businesses selling the bags. They don't do it at a markup, so it's neutral. Like, you just go and purchase the bag, and typically they're between $0.25 and $1. It's up to the town how we price it. It all depends on that financial analysis I was talking about. And then they have a certain number of bags, and that's how it works. They just bag it up like they would their normal trash, and they throw it in the trash.
Okay, so now I've done that. I went and I bought my bag, and I'm heading to the transfer station. And I know I'm asking you to presume a lot of things here. I drive up, and I'm heading to the traditional first hopper where I used to throw everything. Now I'm just throwing my material solid waste bag. Gone. Now I go somewhere else for the food scrap bags?
Yeah, so you would come with the food scrap bags, and, this gets to be a long, complicated conversation, but,
That's what I'm known
we
for.
already have our containers out there, right? And we allow people to come in. Independent of this project, we've been evaluating ways to do on-site composting there. So one of the questions we're gonna ask Deep as we get into this is if can we still do that instead of having a bag system for the food scraps?
That leads me right into my next question. So as we saw in Woodbury, material solid waste plummeted. If you don't compost on site, someone's got to come pick up the food scraps, right? Is there generally a cost associated with that hauling?
Yep, yeah, definitely. There's a hauling cost if you do that.
Okay.
That gets all into the financial profile.
Yeah, we don't know what the nickel and dimes are yet, but it's,
Yeah.
I don't want people to misunderstand that, all the costs of the transfer station are just going to plummet by doing this. They'll be offset somewhere,
I don't know that
unless we compost.
I don't know that there'll be offset. It's just that our waste will go down. Now, part of this is, all right, let's figure out the net benefit, right? And we started developing the framework for this already, but, what does it cost for trash, and what does it come down to? Now, say in this scenario, X amounts shifted to food scraps. Well, what does that cost? Right now, food scraps are on parity, hauling-wise and tipping-wise, with trash. So it's pretty much neutral. But if we instituted a machine to process it on site, for nominal cost to the town, we could eliminate that portion of the cost, except that we'd have to figure out where we get the funds to go buy the machine.
Certainly.
And, figure out the paybacks on that, right? Now, if things shift to recycling, then we got to pick apart the recycling. Is it going to textiles? Is it going to mattresses, things that we already, can benefit from as a town? Then, we got to figure out what the pricing would be and the return back to the town in scenarios of how it would shift. If it goes to single stream recycling, what would be the impact? And how much more money additionally might it cost us if we ended up in single stream recycling? And does that open up an opportunity when we get to contract negotiations to go away from single stream, monetize our cardboard, monetize our glass, take more of the plastic out and, try to make it multi-stream recycling. But, this is a vision, right?
Sure.
Those are all things that we would try to consider in the first phase, and, we might end up just mapping out a long-term plan.
Again, one more question, if you'll indulge me. You had mentioned the audit. Explain to me that. Like, if I go to the transfer station with 4 bags of trash and I'm walking it to the hopper, is one of the transfer station personnel going to be like, hey, I'd like to take that one? Well, what does that mean?
Well, we can either have them go try and divert it once it's in the compactor and get it back out, or keep it from going in the compactor to begin with, or, we just want a statistically relevant sample of trash, right? So in my mind, the easiest way is to simply ask for a set-aside of certain bags for a period of time. That allows us to let them accumulate and do the waste audit all in one go, rather than trying to do it piecemeal over time, because ideally you want to do it seasonally over time. We're not going to really be able to do that, but it's still going to give us a good indication, even if it's not, statistically verifiable in a court of law.
In the world where privacy is everything to everyone, is there anything, any of those kind of concerns that, you throw, some people are more strict about what they put in their garbage as far as credit card bills or bank statements, things like that. Is there any safeguards in place against those type of things? Someone rips open my bag of garbage and I mistakenly threw some kind of private information in there.
Yeah, usually what they do is they set up these buckets and they just categorize it and, they weigh the buckets and figure out how much is in there on a percentage base, and then it just all goes back. And then it all just all goes back into the trash. So, we would probably want somebody from there supervising them to make sure they weren't serendipitously taking anything out of there. But, I don't think they'd be in business long if they were doing that as well.
And that would be the third party people, not our people? Right. Okay. All right. Thank you.
I have a question. Do we know how many people in Southbury use the transfer station every week? Because, if only 10% of the people are using the transfer station and 90% use it in Woodbury, then Woodbury's number is going to be way better than ours. I figure those are numbers we can calculate ahead of time.
Yeah, we can, to some extent. And those numbers were per capita, so, it's somewhat normalized for that already.
Okay.
But now that we have the transfer station stickers,
Yeah.
right, we're going to be able to understand more exactly, right? Deep thinks it's about a quarter of our population is using the transfer station. I don't, I don't advertise that number because I have no personal confidence in it. But it's, if you think about it, you take out Heritage Village, you take out the private haulers, you take out Traditions, and the other miscellaneous condo, it's a healthy percentage that are not using the transfer station today.
Mm-hmm.
So, this initiative, while I think it will have sundry effects on the whole community, is strictly focused on what's coming into the transfer station.
Yeah, I was just thinking because you did have, Southington was a really big number. Do you know, or is there a way we can find out how much of Southington's population is using their transfer station? Is it a quarter? Is it?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, this is in the reviews that we have with the town.
And I know that's part of the $17,000. It makes sense that we have to study it before we make decisions.
Yeah, that's what the whole $17,000 is to help us answer. And this is great feedback because, hopefully you'll think of things that we haven't thought of already. But, once we get a committee together, there's going to be a lot more of this kind of discussion.
I have another question, if I may. Newtown, are they offering, does the town do any of their picking up, or is this like us with just all going to the transfer station? Are any of the towns that we looked at, do they offer collection, like curbside collection?
Yeah, Newtown does.
Right, that's what I thought.
Although I just found out this morning they've stopped doing it for recycling. I've got to talk to Fred about that. I don't know why they would have done that. They're in a different consortium than we are. They're with HRRA. We're in a Bridgeport one to negotiate our prices. But they get a lot more services through the HRRA for these kind of initiatives. So I don't know if it's related to anything along those lines.
And you had mentioned buying a bag from a local retailer. Is that usually the norm, or is there a situation where people will still go and get their Glad trash bags at ShopRite or wherever, Costco? Do they have to use specific bags, or what if they came with generic bags?
I think if you opt for bags, I think you have to use those specific bags. Maybe stickers, right? You just put a sticker on anything, but then people can cheat the stickers. So we gotta think about that. And they do fall off apparently once in a while.
Okay, some things to think about.
Yeah, these are great feedback. All right, thank you.
Up next is public comment. Please limit your public comments to 3 minutes. Anybody here for public comment? Go ahead.
My name is Fred Sell. I've been a resident of 108 Nod Hill Road for 42 years now. I'm speaking on the proposal before you tonight on reestablishing the Strategic Plan Commission. My comments are informed by 3-year involvement with the previous Strategic Plan Commission through the end of 2024, and hands-on experience with planning at industrial businesses and 2 nonprofits. Southbury's first and only strategic plan was unanimously approved by the Board of Selectmen in November 2018. In January 2019, the Board of Selectmen created an advisory-only strategic plan commission with a charter-stated mandate of advising the Board of Selectmen as to the implementation of the strategic plan. By the fall of 2023, the 2018 plan needed updating. As a first step, our commission at the time decided to determine what had been accomplished on the 111 action items in the plan, how these action items had been implemented, and more importantly, how the planning process could be improved going forward. Our analysis was guided by a review of best practices prescribed for municipal governments. Our report, entitled Comprehensive Review of the 2018 Strategic Plan, was submitted to the Board of Selectmen in February 2024. A copy of this report was emailed to each of you today. Before you establish a strategic plan commission, I urge you to review the findings and recommendations in this report and thoughtfully consider how to best reshape multi-year planning process to deliver better outcomes for this town. Members of the former commission, 2 of them sitting over there with me, welcome the opportunity to discuss with you the report at your convenience. 2 key takeaways from our analysis for you to consider. The first, selectman must ensure the town department, board, and commission stakeholders are fully involved in the creation of the strategic plan and subsequently engaged in its implementation. Creation or updating a plan should not be outsourced to a freestanding commission. Instead, qualified planning volunteers could best serve the town by working with key town and community stakeholders to secure their input for the planning process, develop inputs not covered by the existing town entities, consolidating and summarizing information, and drafting plan documents. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment?
Joe Ruggiero, 245 Skyview Drive. I couldn't help but notice that you had the strategic planning discussion item on the agenda this evening. I just wanted to make a few points, like Fred did, about I'm talking more about the previous form of this commission and suggest some caution in how you proceed if you're considering something new. The first form of this commission was, I did some research, was created back in February of 2019 with the best of intentions. In fact, it was created earlier as a task force in March 2nd, 2017 by Jeff Manville, and later formed into the fully fledged commission later. From the start, the intentions were good, but some of the reality of its implementation and function ended up being somewhat different. More recently, there were a lot of difficulties surrounding the commission and its interaction with the prior administration, and they were recognized in the last year or so when the Charter Revision Commission was spun up. And by that time, the consensus of the group was that while it was of great importance and necessity to think strategically, providing the strategic direction to our elected officials, the manifestation that existed wasn't working or workable. The Charter Revision Commission suggested removing the Strategic Planning Commission from the Charter. This made it through the Charter revision process and was submitted to the voters as part of a broader question, number 4, and it was approved 4,319 to 1,043, only 2 months ago or so. I do not think that this is a repudiation of strategic planning and thinking by the general voting populace, but an acceptance that the current form wasn't working. It wasn't a close vote. I strongly urge everyone involved in reconsidering this topic and discussion to do some extensive homework and research before creating any new strategic planning commission or any form of it. The old agendas, the minutes, and reports for the old task force and later the commission are all available online on the town website. Oddly, I could not find bylaws or scope documents that gave details of how the Strategic Planning Commission was supposed to interact with other entities in town, nor could I locate an exact mission statement of purpose, procedures, and relationships outlined anywhere. It's my understanding that there was some friction toward the end with other important commissions in town, like planning, zoning, economic development, and so forth. This needs to be avoided if something like this is recreated. Advice and research is the key output of anything like this, and I think that's a good thing. But that advice can be rejected or accepted by those elected. I reiterate that it's important that some kind of forward-thinking strategic goals and direction be formulated to assist the First Selectman and the Board of Selectmen in their work going forward. I think that the structure and the interaction with the existing town committees, commissions, and boards and town staff needs to be very carefully outlined and its scope and deliverables be extensively defined. Lastly, the choice of the people and their personalities that are appointed to any such group like this will make or break it. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else for public comment? Doesn't appear to have anybody else that wants to make a public comment. We'll move right along. Announcements, correspondence are in front of you. Reports, animal control, building department, library, recreation. The consent agenda, we do need to make a motion to amend the consent agenda. There are a couple items on there that need to be removed, one of which is Blake Leonard was listed in one area of where he was appointed to a committee, and another one was Chris Smoodin was appointed to the Park and Rec Commission, and according to our charter, he is a member of the zoning commission, so he can't hold two. So if someone could please make a motion to amend the consent agenda to remove those two items.
Actually, Mr. First Selectman, if I could, I was going to remove both those two items anyway for discussion, so we can make those amendments as we talk about them individually.
Where did you want to move them to?
In a perfect world, we would have an agenda item called items removed from the consent agenda. So since we don't have that, we could bring it to new business. Make it new business 4A and 4B, I would guess.
And that's for Blake and Chris.
It's a larger topic, but yes.
Okay. All right. You want to make that motion, Jason?
That does not require a motion or a second or a vote. Once any member asks for it to be removed, it gets removed.
Okay. All right, we'll move along then, the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as there,
Motion to approve as amended?
as amended? Do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Anyone opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Bids and procurements, we do have to remove the pedestrian safety improvement. We do not have enough information from the contractor that will be awarded that. We're still waiting on that from Public Works. And we will add that next meeting. Do I have a motion to approve the bids and procurements for committee to review the on-call engineering qualifications and the police vehicles state bid?
So moved.
Motion to approve by Jason. Do I have a second? Kelly? Holly?
By a nose.
We'll give it a Holly. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Anybody abstaining? And the motion carries. Minutes for the December 18th regular meeting. Motion to approve.
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Do I have a second? Thank you, Kathy. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Again, anyone, any discussion on those minutes? Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Unfinished business, we do have a couple things listed under unfinished business. We do have a topic of the Economic Development Director. We had a slight discussion last meeting on that. Currently, we are trying to cut some funds on our budget items. So we don't know if there will be some funds available for that, but I do want to keep that on the unfinished business in the agenda for future meetings. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Selectman, through you. Would there be any advantage to, I understand if we can't fund it, doesn't matter, but is there a manner where in parallel paths we can figure out if we could potentially pay something and work on the other concerns that were around the Economic Development Director, a job description, a reporting structure, and accountability structure to maybe, should we decide during the budgeting process we can pay for it, we don't have to kind of start over and then figure out what we're paying for?
Yeah, they had reduced it, the Board of Finance had reduced it to a reduced hours.
10 hours a week.
10 hours was the reduction. So we could entertain possibly a part-time position on that. You know, that we can bring up in future discussions once we figure out what our budget looks like. So yeah, no, I would definitely entertain some more dialogue on that.
Perfect, thank you, sir.
The ARPA funds reallocation, that we are still waiting on our Park and Rec to come back with some estimates on the new playground that they're proposing. ARPA funds is $183,000 that we're looking to allocate for new playgrounds for Ballantyne and both Settlers. Under new business, we have the SMR2 award that Chuck just presented to us. Does anybody have any discussion on that? Any further discussion on that? If not, can I, yeah, go right ahead.
Is this a discussion on the, or should we have a motion first and then
But
discussion?
we can have a motion to
Okay.
approve that, yep. Somebody want a motion to approve that?
So moved.
Thank you, Jason. Do I have a second? Thank you, Kathy. Discussion? Go ahead, Jason.
Thank you, Ms. First Selectman. I really want to be in favor of this, because I love Chuck. I kind of struggle with two portions of this. The idea, the principle of it, I get. I already compost, I understand the importance, and I think there could be, or there are advantages to this program. I also understand that there's no risk here, but I've you know, being an elected official for 15 years now, I've entered into agreements that were no cost in the beginning, and you become obligated to go either way. So I just wanted to kind of put my concerns right here at the outset. The potential for an added cost to the resident if they have to buy bags or receptacles, even though we don't necessarily know what that is, and it might be nominal. You know, nominal for one family is different for another family. But the thing that actually, and I wasn't expecting it tonight, gave me more pause was the audit process. And I know everyone has the best intentions, but when I throw my garbage out, I want it to go to wherever garbage goes. I don't want somebody from a reputable third-party firm going through it. It's trash. No one can particularly care about mine, but, you know, things get thrown out accidentally sometimes, and the wrong bit of financial data, personal data, health data, any of that information in a world where we're locking down systems left and right, just having some guy go through it didn't necessarily sit well with me. So I'm still struggling with this one, but I just wanted to let, my thoughts out for the group.
Yep, no, I appreciate your concern. And when you brought it up, it kind of let a light off in my head also. Chuck, is that something that definitely has to happen on this first phase? No. Okay.
I thought it was a good idea. I mean, these are good things to safeguard against.
Mhm.
I mean, we could certainly do it with proviso that,
Can you just come up just so the people can actually hear?
so the question is, do we have to do it? And the answer is no. It's up to us how we decide we want to do it. I, of course, thought it was a good idea. I hadn't really thought through the safeguard issue yet.
Could
although
it be
I'm sure-
voluntary? If I just want to say, hey, go to town on my trash, it's
Yeah,
not the perfect sample, but it's better than no sample.
Yeah, we could ask for permission, certainly. We could put safeguards into place. We could have oversight as well. I mean, it's up to us to design it so that it's appropriate.
Wendy said she would go to the transfer station and oversee this entire process.
No,
I
I
thought
was
you were
actually
volunteering.
Whispered it right in my ear.
I
I was
thought you were
actually
volunteering,
concurring
actually.
on the voluntary component of it.
I misunderstood. I apologize.
So, if people were approaching and were educated as to what you were trying to accomplish and decided that it was okay, I think that would relieve any concerns about, going through and this being intrusive. Because if somebody knowingly gave you permission, then that would eliminate the concern.
Yeah. No, I'm glad you brought it up, and, we do have Tom Connor on the commission, and if anybody knows Tom Connor, this is a hot button issue for him as well, so.
All right, appreciate it, thank
Yeah,
you. So it could be a volunteer thing up there. Anybody else have any concerns?
I think and I just want to preface that I realize that the vote that we're talking about tonight is just to study it. We're not making the decision to go forward. I think that's really, really important for folks who might catch wind of this. One of my big concerns with this program, while I think it's tremendously valuable, I think about the day-to-day life of many of the residents of this community, and the degree that they would consider sorting and splitting and purchasing bags to be a major hassle in their life. There's a lot of families that chuck their diaper in the garbage and and then they're gonna get there and be told like, oh no, we rolled out your own bags and you have to do this, and they're gonna throw up their hands and then go hire private hauling. And I don't want to create a situation, and again, this is like a scenario, I don't want to create a situation where people are currently taking advantage of the transfer station and they're utilizing, possibly sorting, to then all of a sudden they're calling waste management to come pick it up at their curb because they don't want to be bothered. I don't want to take away something from folks because it becomes too burdensome, but I realize we're not at that point yet, it's just foresight.
Well,
And-
go ahead.
Sorry. One thing I didn't mention is the first round of the grant, participation was voluntary. If we take these deep monies for the launch and implementation of it, they've removed that. It would have to be mandatory. But there's nothing to say that we couldn't just stop at that point and do our own thing and make it voluntary if we wanted to participate.
Right, but we are voting on the whole phase, 1, 2, and 3, and
Right.
we're going through the first phase, and after the first phase, if we determine we don't want it any longer, then we can,
We can stop.
it's just a pilot.
We can stop at any point.
Okay, so to clarify then, tonight, our vote is to do all 3 phases. Maybe I needed clarification on that.
No, the vote tonight is whether to accept the award. The way the award is structured is that these toll gates, and you're allowed to quit at any time throughout the process.
And would that be a vote, is that an automatic vote by us, or does it by default just keep going unless one of us raises our hand and says, hey, where are we on this, and are we stopping? Like, are we going to, what's the,
It's up to how you
Plan.
want to
Yeah, we're
implement.
voting tonight on it. We're gonna vote tonight on it to implement this SR, MMR2 program. And the first phase is what we're gonna be looking at, implementing, and taking the information and figuring out if it's something the Southbury residents want. This is pretty much affecting probably 20% of the residents that actually use the transfer station. And I think the biggest part of this type of pay-as-you-go program is really the first phase is to educate most of the residents in Southbury on the benefits of it. I think it's really gonna reduce the amount of recyclables that go into the solid waste. And the food scrap program too. That's how we're gonna reduce our solid waste is get, recycling and food scraps.
I think just expanding on Holly's point, at the end of phase one, the conclusion of phase one, would all the information gathered come back to the board for a discussion before we move into phase two? Or do we just automatically migrate into phase two?
Well, my vision of it is we come back to the board and ask for permission to move forward. But,
Yep.
that's entirely up to,
Yeah, and that's how I perceived it when you gave the presentation, so,
Right.
yeah, definitely.
And I apologize if this was in the presentation and I missed it, but the program manager or technical consultant, do they come on board in phase one? And is that covered by the grant money, or is that coming out of
no,
the
it's,
town?
it's covered by the grant money.
Go ahead, Kathy.
Just as clarification, so if we do vote to go forward for the $17,000, is part of the motion that when we decide to go forward or not to go forward, that vote comes back? Because it's kind of two different issues. One is whether we want the $17,000, and then yay may want it, but then who's deciding whether we go forward? Like, that should be part of our vote here.
Well, our vote is to go ahead for the award.
But I also want to know who's going to say yay or nay at the end.
Yeah, it's. Whereas phase 2 and 3 of the SMM grant program may support future implementation steps should the town determine after
Yep.
phase 1 evaluation that advancing the UBP or food scrap division is in Southbury's best interest.
Yeah, I'm looking for clarification, like who in the town is going to determine to go forward?
That's us.
That's us.
That's
Okay,
us.
I just wanted, before I say, yeah, let's spend money, I want to know what the next,
So I'm dense,
Yep.
and maybe I'm, so we vote tonight to start the program. A year from now, call it. We will then have an affirmative vote to continue the program, or not.
Yes.
Okay.
And I don't think it's a year from now. I think it's at max 6 months from what the
You said
slide
6 to 8, I thought was phase 1.
Well, it can be any amount of time we need.
Okay.
We're envisioning it as about a 6-month process right now.
The time, I'm fine with. I just want to make sure there's another affirmative vote
yeah.
to go, okay.
exactly what, yeah, that's
'Cause
exactly what I
that'll
was
change,
thinking.
that'll change what I do tonight, I think.
Oh, definitely.
Okay.
We're coming back after we gain our information.
Thank you for the
Yeah,
clarification.
I mean, yeah, it's the only way you can make an informed decision.
Yeah.
I think we're all agreed, I just want to make sure we're all agreed.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Chuck.
All right.
If I can just point out too, it does say with no commitment to implement. So I think,
I
that's.
just wanted some assurance who was going to be making the decision.
Okay. Yep, appreciate that. So can I get a motion to approve the SMMR2 award?
I think we have a motion and a second on the table already.
Who seconded? Holly. Okay. We just had our discussion. Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Under new business, Larkin Bridle Path. That is just on the new business agenda for discussion. We had a number of people that came before the Board of Selectmen. This is the crossing of, on Route 6 about 2 years ago. I did contact some representatives from DOT and also from Naugatuck Valley COG. There was some recommendations from them back in 2023 to go ahead and institute the crossing along with some signs and also a beacon flasher for people to use while they're either mounted on a horse or even driving bicycles or even walking that. That recommendation both came from DOT and Naugatuck Valley COG, so when I hear further from them on when this will be instituted, I'll bring it before the Board of Selectmen again for discussion. We did hear regarding the Strategic Plan Commission. Let's see, so that was a discussion, possible board action for tonight. Do I have a motion to approve reinstituting the Strategic Planning Commission? Anyone?
So moved.
Second?
Do we want a commission or a task force?
The way it stands right now, we have it as a commission.
Okay,
Do I have a second?
second.
Thank you, Kathy. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Discussion?
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, discussion.
Thank you, Ms. First Selectman. Rather than repeat Joe Ruggiero, I served with him on the Charter Revision Commission last year, and this was a topic at a bunch of our meetings. We kind of, and me specifically, feel that the idea of some kind of group to assist and advise the first selectman with a strategic plan makes sense. A standing commission that exists 12 months a year, year after year, we thought didn't make sense, as a strategic plan is generally a visionary 10-year document similar to like a POCD that a task force or a ad hoc committee of a certain standing might make more sense than a constant commission. Other factors that went into that were, we see throughout the rest of our boards and commissions, oftentimes we have trouble finding volunteers. So having them on having an ad hoc, task force would allow those members to serve other roles in the community as well. At times we're having trouble filling some of those other very important commissions. So I'm kind of still in that place. I think I would be against similar to the voters 2 months ago, a full-time strategic plan commission. But if there was some type of shorter-term ad hoc task force type setup designed to advise you however you wanted them to advise you, I think I could be in support of that type of idea.
I'd also, if I may, just weigh in, this, to kind of recap again, this was something that the Charter Revision Commission looked at and was passed by the voters in that larger question of whether or not we should move forward with their recommendations. In the years on this Board of Selectmen, I think one of the things that I've seen is that we have a planning commission, and then there was a strategic planning commission, and sometimes there were areas where they overlapped or disagreed or didn't communicate with each other. So I'm also in the same boat that I would think that that commission, I agree that a standing commission is going right back to that just a few months later is not the way that I would like to go as well. And I think that there's some valid reason why that went away, but I also can understand why there's interest in maybe a short-term group, but not bringing back a commission that was just recently removed for some valid reasons.
Point taken. Anyone else?
Do we have the opportunity to take a little bit more time to look at how it had been structured in the past and how we may restructure it in the future before voting to make a decision?
Well, I mean, the Strategic Planning Commission is really just an advisory commission to the Board of Selectmen. Hearing the discussion, I wouldn't be opposed to renaming it as a task force, a strategic plan task force, if that's what the Board of Selectmen wants to do. I think it's something that's needed, and I think there are some people that, even former members of the Strategic Planning Commission, that are still interested in having it. in, as an advisory role to the Board of Selectmen, I think it's needed, and we can really identify 5 or 6 key things that we would really want to plan for this year. So if somebody, excuse me, would rather make a motion to rename it as a strategic planning task force, I would be okay with that.
The only thing I would add with that, Mr. First Selectman, if I could, if it's an ad hoc task force with a set duration of time, a lot of this goes away. There's no alternating terms or 4-year basis. So I think what we would have to do is scope out what you'd like it to look like. It's 7 people, 4 from, no more than 4 from one party type thing. So a lot of this language may change. To Kelly's point, would it serve you better to table this for a meeting, draw up what a task force might look like, and then vote on it so there's less questions 2 weeks from now?
That's fine with me.
All right, so I would make a motion to table this for further discussion to transition into an ad hoc task force. Postpone to next meeting.
Postpone it?
That's the better language.
Okay. To the next meeting.
Can I just ask a
Sure.
random question? Is there a major difference from a task force and a committee? Or is it the words seem to be used interchangeably? I don't know if there's an official definition of each.
Well, I believe a commission would have certain set terms.
No,
and-
committee, because we said task force or a committee, right?
Task force.
Or it says commission.
commission.
Or commission.
Or commission, oh, is that, okay.
Yeah, I would rather it not be a commission, which is a
Yeah, no, I agree,
standing.
I agree with that. No,
You
I
know,
was,
If we
I
want to
guess
call it
I
a
just
blue
threw
ribbon
in a random
panel, I don't
word.
really care. Mine is more kind of the short-term duration
No,
with a
that
set
makes sense.
focus.
No, ad hoc, yep. Okay. So the motion's on the table. There's a second. Any other discussion? All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Abstentions, motion carries. Let's see, first selectman report.
Mr. First Selectman, we removed a couple items from the
Oh, I'm
consent
sorry.
calendar.
Yeah, let's go back to that. So yes, on the consent agenda, removing Blake and Chris Schmoden from 2 commissions.
Yeah, so I would make a motion to approve item 4A with the amendments you just noted.
Second? Kelly seconded it. Any discussion on that?
Mr. First Selectman? I just removed 4A, the resignations, just to note and thank. You with me, Betsy? Okay. Just to thank our soon-to-be former Public Works Director, Blake Leonard. I think he served the town admirably. His efforts, especially most recently getting us through that flood and the rebuild, is something that the town and its residents owes him a debt of gratitude, and I thought we'd be remiss if we didn't note it at the meeting.
Thank you for that. Yes, Blake definitely served this town well. I was disappointed to hear of his resignation. His shoes are going to be hard to fill. Moving back to the motion, so we do have a motion. We do have a second to remove those from the consent agenda. Any other further discussion? If none, all in favor, signify by saying aye.
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 Anybody opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. And we will move on to the first selectman report.
Nope, sorry, Mr. First Selectman, we still got the new B section of that, so.
We're all confused here.
So 4B, so we just got through the resignations from the consent calendar, 1A. So now we're going to, I also removed B, the appointments.
Okay.
On the online agenda.
Move down a little bit further, Betsy. A little bit further.
We're there, this is one of them. This is one of them. So I'm yeah, so this is an appropriate place to start.
Yeah.
So I'd make a motion to
Oh, okay.
approve new item, new business L4B appointments. As amended.
As amended, so that is removing Chris Smoot as the regular member of the Park and Rec Commission. Do I have a second? Kathy, thank you. Any further discussion?
Mr. First Selectman, I just wanted to note, in addition to Mr. Smooten, and I understand that anytime, political power changes hands, there's always going to be multiple people recommended for certain roles, and not everyone gets it, and I get that. I had issue with one very specific appointment here, and it was brought up last night at the library board, where a longtime member, Mr. Chuck Crowdis, who serves as their chairman of technology, and he's been a longtime, very good member of that board, is not going to be reappointed. And I don't want to get into the details or talk personalities, but I guess I was a little bit disappointed that sometimes, for reasons no other than your political affiliation, we tell volunteers that they're no longer needed. So I was just a bit remiss to seeing that and disappointed, and I'm sure next time we get an opening on the Republican side, we'll probably put them back forward. But I know a lot of the members of the library board of directors were upset to learn about it last night.
He served well. He served the commission well. There are two appointees that are going on there, replacing two Republicans that have extensive experience, and their resumes are very impressive. Chris Rumford and Linda Hocking. So, but I appreciate that. So I believe we still need to vote on that? You made the motion. Do I have a second? Kathy seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Anybody abstaining? Anybody opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the first selectman report. I had the opportunity to hand out 100 holiday cheer baskets with our senior services director, Andrea Corcoran, and also bus driver Bruce Malone. Senior Services Departments provides baskets to seniors who may be isolated and or in need of some holiday happiness. Thanks to the generation of donations from the community members and partners. Thank you to everyone who donated, and to the Senior Services for arranging and the program and helping bring holiday cheer to our residents. The Southbury Police Department was accredited a Tier 2 accreditation. Congratulations to the Southbury Police for achieving this Tier 2 accreditation. Thank you to the officers for your service to our community and your commitment to excellence. Thank you to Catherine Healy, the accreditation manager, and also the Deputy Chief Safone for his dedicated efforts, and also to Police Chief Grillo. Obtaining that is great for our community. The zoning regulations update. There is an open house for zoning regulations on January 28th. That's open to the public. It's from 4 p.m. to 6. It'll be in room 205 at the Southbury Town Hall. And it'll allow people to learn more about the project and about current regulations and voice your opinion. The employee recognition. Tom Farley, our road foreman, completed the Connecticut Safety Academy program. This required 40 credit hours of courses with Connecticut Transportation Institute. Thank you to Tom. Thank you to Tom for his focus on safety and leadership as he continues to maintain our local infrastructure. Also, Angela Smith, Southbury's Assistant Tax Collector, has successfully passed 5 exams required to become a certified Connecticut municipal collector. Angela needs 1 more year of the 3 years of required work to achieve her official CCMC designation. So congratulations to Angela for passing such a big milestone. Excuse me. Animal Control Officer Kristen Sedor participated in a mutual aid operation in Naugatuck Animal Control. Appreciate her professionalism and compassion of the other officers that participated. And today I had the pleasure of speaking at the meeting of the Heritage Village Republican Club. The attendees brought thoughtful questions, and we had an engaged discussion on a variety of issues that matter to Heritage Village and the town. Thank you to those members for inviting me. Thank you, Judy. There is a circuit breaker tax relief program that we want to remind the elderly of, and any disabled homeowners who meet the criteria. They can apply to the circuit breaker tax relief program at the assessor's office or online starting February 1st. If you are already in the program, you can expect a mailing of this year to fill out your paperwork again. We do have an online correction for an ordinance. Our town clerk, Alice Mazzano, sent a request to correct missing paragraphs in section 15.3 on our online ordinance system. The online system should be updated within a couple of weeks. When it was redlined, only the red lines were sent to Munico, and 2 paragraphs were left out. Checked with the town attorney. Center programs, starting new with multi-session care. The first session is in February. Starting February 6th, the Senior Center Friday programming will off on that Friday, so that's going to be reinstituted February 6th. Radon in basements is part of the National Radon Action Month. The Who's Kit, please contact the Health Department. That's what I have.
As some of this group knows, I formerly served on the PESGES feasibility study, so I went up to the Board of Ed meeting on Monday because they're in the process of getting closer and closer to bringing a project to fruition. And during the comments, a couple things I learned that I didn't know that I was hoping I could bring back to the board here. Part of the process was the architect kind of walking through all the stages of the process and how they go on to determine things. And during that report, they had all the potential school sites up there, and they ranked them based on about 15 different categories. And what they had determined as the best option for the new school up on Roxbury Road, the note on their slide said denied by the first selectman. So since we didn't really talk about it here, I just didn't wonder if you wanted to take a minute to kind of explain the rationale there on that property.
Excuse me? That's not on our agenda, so I don't think that we can bring that up, but if you'd like to put it on the next agenda, I'd be more than happy to discuss that.
The last term, you often would ask Selectman Manville about things under his first selectman's report.
Yep, and if it isn't on the agenda, we're not gonna address it.
The first selectman's report is on the agenda. It's right there, M.
You're bringing up a topic that isn't noted on the agenda, so we're not gonna go there right now.
All right, I'll wait for the Region 15 one.
Okay. Liaison reports. Selectwoman Wendy Bernard.
Thank you, our selectmen. So with respect to IPOC, there is no update since the last meeting, which was in November, when then Selectman Betty provided the report, but there is a report that I will bring to this commission when, after the fourth Wednesday, I believe, in February, it is scheduled. However, the focus currently is the investment policy statement review, and once I have some updates, I will bring that here as well. And then, of course, there is a scheduled meeting where I'll be in attendance next week at the senior center, and I'll bring my report from there. And as I mentioned last week, I really am looking forward to the Super Bowl party.
Okay, thank you. Selectwoman Kathy DeCarly?
I was at the, hello. I was at the library board meeting, and there was a lot going on. They did ask the question about the $250,000 state grant. They had mentioned Jason Bucksbaum, that the money had not been released yet, so the questions that they were asking was, would the library get all of that grant money, or what portion of it would they get, and do they know when to expect it? I think this has to do with the flood. So,
Yes.
do you know any updates on that?
I know they were awarded some state funding. I didn't realize they hadn't received it yet.
Well,
but,
they had asked our representative, and he said that the money was not released yet, but I don't know if you knew,
No, I don't.
any idea
No.
if and when? Okay, cool. So last night, they were having a program, it was really kind of cool. Basically, it was for students of Region 15 studying for midterms to study at the library itself, and they had provided pizza, and they also provided a petting zoo, well, like critters, not really, not huge animals. But the idea was that everybody could just, they kept the library open later, so they could study anywhere they wanted in the library, and then they had pizza as a break, and also the critter zoo. Unfortunately, we were all in a meeting, we didn't get to play with the animals, and it was a very successful program. There was a ton of kids there, and it worked out really well, and this was, Eli was the guy who came up with this idea. They're also continuing the book sale. Right now, they're having a mini book sale in the hallway where they keep all the artwork and next to the bathrooms. They decided to keep it open until May because they don't really use that space, and it's just a lot easier to keep the sale going than to move the books back and forth into storage. They also have the,
I like those glasses.
you like those glasses? Yeah. These are Tim's glasses, I forgot mine. I'm a little blind right now. The elevator is being repaired. It's scheduled to be done sometime March or April, but repairs are going well, so they're hoping it will get done a little sooner than that. They have, from the library gift fund, they do have some projects set for 2026. They're going to start with the second floor, painting and carpeting, and then hopefully to refresh their play area by getting some different toys and furniture. And then they will worry about paying for like the downstairs upgrades. There is a new program, it's called the Traveling Collection, and it's a collection of books of a particular subject. In honor of the 250th anniversary, they wanted to get the educational, let me back up. So not only is it a collection of books, it makes a nice display, it also comes with a lot of teaching material, educational material, and it can be borrowed, different elementary schools can borrow it for their classroom, so they're gonna be investing in that. The subject of their collection, their traveling collection, is going to be immigration. And they said in the honor of the 250th anniversary. The teachers in Region 15 are very excited about that. So they've been building a lot of camaraderie between Region 15 teachers and the library. They're They're also going to be doing My Heritage, which is a system for genealogy. They do have some grant money for that. And the nice thing about this program called My Heritage is it's something that can be used remotely with anybody with a current library card in the Southbury Library. And the other good thing about it is there's no limitation, it's free. There's no limitations on time or number of people who can use it at the same time. So that's a cool thing. They are planning to do some events in honor of the library turning 20 years old. So possibly keep a lookout in May. They're looking into possibly cleaning the bricks in the front, of people who made donations and those little donation bricks. So they're looking into some companies to clean those up because, again, 20 years. There's a concert that's happening April 20th, a violin and a keyboard. So that'll be happening at night. And there's also the Tiny Art Project. Basically, you can go to the library and you can get a little 4x4 canvas. So it's a tiny art show. Anyone can come. You take the materials, make anything you want, and then they display it sometime in February. And that is, in a nutshell, everything that's going on there. They're amazing. They're just they like go 90 miles an hour.
You didn't have the opportunity to do anything with the Energy Task Force or the Conservation Commission?
The Conservation Commission, I've been taken off of that, and Jason's been assigned to it. And the Energy Task Force meets on Tuesday.
That's right, okay, thank you. Selectwoman Kelly, Keenan.
Okay, so Parks and Recreation met last week. The conversation centered mainly around playground improvements at Ballantyne. I believe the subcommittee met today, and they're going to start defining a scope of work and what that looks like, and then start getting different bids. I know they have several different vendors that they're looking at. The emphasis would be on durability, having more inclusive equipment, suitable for both younger and older kids. I think they want to find some type of fitness elements so that teens and tweens can have a space to play and stay active as well. I think they're going to actively start seeking feedback from middle school kids to see like what those playgrounds look like and what's popular. They're also talking about the possibility of putting in a safety fence around the playground to keep younger children from getting into the parking lot. They reiterated their concerns about the splash pad as far as location and access restrictions, health and safety concerns, liability and maintenance. And then they provided an update on what's going on at the pavilion, hoping that it'll be back up and running in time for camp. And then there's a discussion about offsetting any lost revenue for pavilion rentals by extending the season into October. So that was basically Parks and Rec. And then Economic Development meets next week, but I had an opportunity to talk to Jack Cesaro earlier this week. They are going to be starting their business retention and expansion, reaching out to local businesses for that initiative, looking at a different kind of shop local campaign. They're actively working on obtaining new lights for the new Welcome to Southbury signs. They are involved in some capacity with the America 250 activities that are going to be happening around town. I think in the November meeting, they approved a handful of Betsy Ross flags to be incorporated into the Main Street flags that go up. And then they also wanted to reiterate the importance of having an economic development director put in place and specifically highlight Kevin Bielmeyer's exceptional qualities for that role. And LEPC meets in February, so I haven't done that yet.
Thank you. That, just to piggyback on the Park and Rec, we did meet with, as far as the vandalism goes, we did meet with the insurance adjuster. Still have not had their report sent to us. All of the damage has been cleaned up in both Ballantyne and Settlers. And I believe the May rentals should be okay. I think we'll have enough time to get those reconditioned. We are putting in security cameras in 3 parks, Valentine, Settlers, and also Community House. So that's in our budget. Let's see, Selectman Holly Sullivan.
So Region 15 met January 12th. They're in the height of the year, lots of things going on, particularly curriculum committee, but obviously what everybody wants to know about is GES, PES, and kind of what's the future going forward there. So a recap of kind of where they are today, how they got there. They looked at a variety of different sites across town, some properties that they own, properties that they don't currently own, and, you know, ultimately where they are the most viable option that their opinion, along with the contractors, is that rebuilding the existing schools on their existing property is the way that they're gonna go. That does obviously go to a town referendum. That is not a decision that they make in a vacuum. Come March, that language should be out, what it will look like on the ballot, and then it goes to the people of the town of Southbury to decide if that's what they would like to do. There are a variety of factors that go into this decision, particularly around timing. Timing is very important because it does need to go to a referendum for the voters, and also intricacies as far as with getting grant money from the state, and what expectations they have of those grants possibly changing, or the contributions from the state possibly changing. And please forgive me, I sound terrible, and I'm very sorry that I'm rough to listen to tonight. So ultimately, that's where they've wound up, and certainly lots of different areas have been explored over the last year plus that they've been working on this, and those are the next steps.
Thank you. Selectman Jason Van Stone.
Question on the Region 15.
Sure, go ahead.
As Selectman Holly Sullivan noted, that they went through a bunch of opportunities and different properties. One of them that they really liked was the Roxbury Road property. They noted the first selectman of Southbury did not want to entertain that. I just didn't know if you would share your rationale here with us.
Well, they asked me, and at that point, I wasn't interested in selling the property. Offered a few other sites and questioned some of the sites that they looked at. Also questions the Tecton Engineering report with certain assumptions that they made. I mean, that's all.
Okay, to ask a question on your answer, because I understand it, and that was a fine answer. According at the Board of Ed meeting, one of the recommendations you gave them was what would be known as the Lake Stibbs property, which I think I kind of generally understand is kind of where Southbury Celebration is usually held, which is part of the Southbury Training School. At the Board of Ed meeting, then you later said, never mind, that's not something the state wants to entertain, because the state already is planning on doing something with that property, which I assume would be some kind of subsidized housing project. Can you inform this board, since we've never really talked about it here, what the state is looking to do at what we're calling the Lake Stibbs property?
So I did meet with Susan Weissowitz and some members of the state regarding a portion of property on the Southbury Training School, east side of 172, hoping that the state may convey some of that property for the relocation of Pomperug Elementary School. I'm not on board, to be perfectly honest with you, to relocate Pomperug Elementary School on the existing site. I'm sure everybody knows the traffic concerns that we have on Main Street. I thought a better site would be relocating that to state property. It encompasses 219 acres. It goes from the superintendent's home all the way down to Personnel Village, which is the 45 acres that was conveyed to the town of Southbury by the state for multi-generational housing, rewritten last year, from senior housing to multi-generational. There was a portion back behind that could have, I believe, been a piece of property to relocate the Pomperug Elementary School. State officials really weren't very open on what they wanted to do with that property, but the gentleman from OPM said that the governor has tasked him with affordable housing in Hartford and Southbury. I haven't had any further discussion. I don't know what they intend to do. That's all I have.
Okay, no, that's fine. And it didn't mean to be a gotcha question. I was just wondering. So, but housing, some kind of subsidized housing sounds like that's the,
I don't
So,
know. I really
I
don't
just
know.
want, pardon me, I just want to correct the phrasing. It is, they're not subsidized housing projects. They're affordable housing, and I think the framing is really important because it's so mischaracterized, and it needs to be called affordable housing. And there is a specific definition of what that is, and it is not subsidized housing projects. It's just not.
that's fine. I'll call it not market rate housing.
Thank you.
And just to follow up, you had mentioned the Pierce Hollow. So no school at Pierce Hollow, though, because that was something they were also talking about. That was a
They're
recommendation.
not interested in Pierce Hollow. They have no interest in Pierce Hollow,
They, the board, who's they? They, the Board of Ed?
Board of Ed.
No, that I agree. But that, so that's not even something we're going to push for here.
No.
Okay. Thank you.
If I can just follow up, and just because, again, whatever term you call it, affordable housing is largely, especially in a community like Southbury, for a lot of seniors and people who live here in Southbury. I've done closings in my civilian capacity for people who are young people that grew up here all their lives, but they are professionals that are working and they cannot afford to live in Southbury at the price points. So I really want to clarify for the record here that what we're talking about when we say affordable housing isn't this sort of subsidized housing project or anything that comes with that sort of derogatory connotation. It is a consideration of keeping people who were born and raised here in Southbury being able to live and work here in affordable, respectable housing that conforms to the character of this community, and not to have any, changes that would negatively impair or impact this town in any way.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry if it was mischaracterized. I meant no disparagement towards subsidized or affordable or mansions. I don't care. I was just asking the question, what kind of housing was going to come? It sounded like the short answer was, we don't know. The state's going to do some kind of housing there. It could very well be affordable. It could be market rate. It could be subsidized. We just don't. I was simply asking the question because it's being discussed at other boards.
Yep.
But not this board.
Yep.
Simple
No,
as that.
The state did say affordable housing. They were tasked by Governor Lamont to put in affordable housing in Southbury and in Hartford. Those were the only two towns that they did mention. I do appreciate the correction, though, Wendy. As a former property manager, I've managed affordable housing units, and they are beautiful units. One in Ridgefield, Coach Homes, right on Main Street there, 30-unit. Building, elevator, wall-to-wall carpeting is beautiful. Southbury does need affordable housing, and that's definitely high on our list of getting that developed, the Personnel Village.
I have a couple questions, just because a lot of this
Sure.
information is very new to me. I'm just learning a lot of this tonight. Just to recap, did I hear correctly that there's a thought process to use the property that's used for the Southbury celebration would become housing? Is that the plan? Okay,
No.
I just want to make sure if I
No.
heard that
I
incorrectly.
don't know what the state has in mind, but they did mention that they were tasked, again, with affordable housing on state property. I don't know where they intend to put it. I've been probing them to try to find out, but nobody has gotten back to me yet.
And then my second question, following up on Selectwoman Bernardi's comments, the housing would be for the people of Southbury. Did I get that right? That you said that there's folks who live, work, and have ties here, and that housing would be intended for those individuals?
Yeah, so obviously I can't speak to the plans that have not yet been released, but what I was specifically referring to is the tendency to use derogatory terms to describe what is really, truly defined as affordable housing. Affordable housing is not the same as subsidized housing projects. Those are completely different concepts. But oftentimes, the concept of affordable housing in communities are discussed by those who might not understand it or might have a knee-jerk reaction to the word affordable, is to characterize them as subsidized housing projects. What they are housing intended for the people who live in this town. Again, as I said, in my civilian practice as an attorney, I have done closings for young people who were born here, went to school here, but they have to move to other towns to afford their first home because there's no house at the price point for those people. They're elderly people in this town. We have a large growing senior community who also benefit from having housing they can afford, people who live and work here. So to the extent that affordable housing is being mischaracterized was the impetus for my making it clear on the record that we're talking about two different things, and to be careful not to mischaracterize affordable housing as this, using a pejorative term.
Understood, and I really wasn't commenting so much on the language that was used. My question was more centered around the comments made that the housing that potentially would be built here in Southbury is intended for folks who live here, have ties here, were born here, work here, or have any other affiliation with the town of Southbury. That's my question, is if that's the understanding.
Yeah,
That's a typical understanding, but I think if you're saying that it is exclusive, or if that's what you're asking me to confirm, I certainly could not confirm that nobody else in the world could ever, purchase a home. I mean, people purchase homes in Southbury all the time that come here from other places. I'm not suggesting that, and, I wasn't trying to make a broader comment. My comment was really focused on the I can't say the word, mischaracterization of the, the term affordable and what the intent is, how it's worked in all other communities, like the first selectman said in Richfield and some of the other communities, Weston, Westport, Greenwich. Those houses are made to conform to the communities where they are, and they're typically, again, especially as I said, in my experience, I've had direct access to people who were born here. Again, that was a part of my personal experience, and providing that example of people that I've done closings for that were born and raised here in Southbury. They're young people coming out of college who have to move to another town because they cannot afford to buy their first home here. And I was trying to be narrowly focused on clarifying the term and clarifying how the disparaging characterization often misstates what affordable housing is.
Thank you.
can I get a motion to adjourn?
Jason,
Oh, okay.
I haven't talked enough yet tonight.
I thought you were done.
I want to begin by thanking the First Selectman and Selectwoman DeCarly for doing a little horse trading with me, as she had noted. My original liaison assignments were for two committees that met at the exact same time on the exact same day. So we did some trading off. So I haven't had the chance to meet with the Conservation Commission yet, my new commission. We'll do that next week, as well as EMS. And I wanted to thank everyone I'd ever worked with at the Energy Task Force, Chuck Liddy especially, for everything they've done, and I look forward to following them closely.
Can I get a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Second, thank you. All in
Third.
favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.